Well, thank you very much for talking to me.
Of course.
I think, how are you recovering? First off, I mean, obviously it's been a little bit of a time ago now, but are your feet okay? And
Yeah, I mean those things, as bad as they are in the moment, and as sharp of a pain as they can be at the moment, they recover quite quickly. I mean, you need to let the blister go back down, and then you're usually fine within a few days. So, and given I only went about halfway of what I was intending and what I was pacing myself for and preparing my body for, outside of that, there wasn't much recovery to speak of, honestly.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Obviously, I wanted to talk about your Wainwright's attempt. You and your challenges are inspirational to so many, and I think a run that doesn't go to plan is still inspirational with how you deal with it and the decision you made to stop and why. Your mindset on how and why it went wrong and your determination to attempt it again. What are your sort of thoughts now, a few weeks down the line? Is there anything you would do differently? And will you go back?
Well, I would certainly take care of my feet better. It was foolish and a bit brash of me to not do that. I haven't had foot problems like that in the past. And that includes doing things like the spine and the Pennine Way, where my feet have been wet the entire time. I mean, both times I've done the Pennine Way, I didn't change socks even the entire time, and pretty soaking wet the entire time. But this had the added element of the heat, and heat can really do quite a number on your feet in terms of blisters. And I don't know if maybe the salt water from the sweat was also worse than just normal water. But I mean, the three elements that really do damage to your feet are wet, heat, and steep terrain. And so I really had the full trifecta there, doing the Wainwrights this time around. And it's maybe one thing I've thought of that I was trying to avoid the bogs and the streams and whatnot to keep my feet from getting wet, but I may have been better off plowing right through those and cooling my feet off and rinsing off the sweat. But in hindsight, I certainly would have changed socks, powdered my feet at every support point, taken everything off and let my feet air out every time that I swept. And these are really just common sense, very low cost things to do that can prevent catastrophe. I didn't bother because I'd never had it happen before, but that's kind of like saying I've never been in a wreck, so I don't need to wear a seatbelt.
But they also take time, though, don't they?
They do, but I mean, you're talking about minutes over the course of something that is taking you 5 or 6 days. So relatively speaking, in that case, it's a small investment in order to prevent a worst case scenario.
I think feet is something that all ultra runners could talk about all day long, really, isn't it? And how to look after them. So do you think, you are an experienced and an elite runner, are you still surprised that your body can throw curveballs at you like this when you perhaps feel you should know exactly what it's going to do in any given situation?
Yeah, I certainly should have known better on that particular problem, but that's one thing that's interesting about ultras and exciting about them, is there's so many variables in play. You can never account for all of them. You can never optimize across all of them, and that makes it a fun challenge. And I think also something exciting to I don't know if spectate is the right word. You can't really spectate it the way that you can most other sports, but just being able to track it and see how people progress through challenges like this and the issues that they face during them.
Absolutely. You said on Instagram that this isn't the first time I've come up short, that you have a 50% success rate on tackling the really big challenges first time round. Don't you think that's reasonable given the scale of your attempts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is, and that's something I kind of told myself to keep things in perspective. And yeah, I'd say 50% is about right on the really big stuff like Wainwright's or Barkley or Pennine Way, or even some of the earlier stuff I was aiming at, qualifying for the Boston Marathon, for example. That took me 3 attempts when I first started out and got back into running. And it's I would much rather have the big goal with failure along the way than have a bunch of smaller, less meaningful goals with a higher success rate. And everyone is different. That might not be what appeals to everyone, but it's what I find the most rewarding in the long term, even if there are setbacks here and there. That even when you're going to fail half the time, that doesn't make it not painful when you do.
Absolutely. Your focus is something that was very clear when you reclaimed your Pennine Way record earlier this year. Does that come naturally, or is that something you've sort of honed over time?
I think a bit of both. I've always been pretty focused, and some might say determined, some might say stubborn, depending on the context. But when I get a goal in my head, when I really get fixated on something, I'm quite tunnel vision on getting that done, and kind of don't let myself get deterred by any obstacles or anything that comes along the way.
To you, bettering the time you did last year or beating Damien?
Your sound cut out there for just 1 second.
Oh, sorry. What was more important to you, beating your time or beating Damien?
So I mean, I wanted to go out there and really get a good performance, one that I felt was near the top of what I could do. Again, in these things with so many variables, you're almost always never going to get an absolute perfect performance. And again, that's part of what makes it intriguing. But I wanted to be able to come away from it knowing that I had achieved a good result that was a good measure of what I could do. And hopefully that would be better than Damien's time. That was certainly a goal. But wherever that result was, that's what it would be. And so I didn't set my schedule to beat Damien's time. That's not what I based things on. I set my schedule based on what I thought I could do, which did happen to be faster than Damien's time. But I really wanted to go out there and was more focused on setting the record rather than breaking the record, if that makes sense.
Yes, that does make sense. Will you? Well, you say. Do you say you were going to the Tour de Jean? Are you looking forward to going back to a sort of competitive racing, or do you actually quite enjoy these the challenges and records?
Yeah, I enjoy both. It'll be exciting to go back there. There's still a lot of questions around COVID on what that trip will look like, as far as getting there, getting back, changes that have to be made during the race and leading up to it. So I'm excited about it, but also a bit apprehensive about all of that. And in particular, last time I did Tour de Géant, my wife joined me at the end, and we had a fun little trip around the area for a few days. And this time that won't be able to happen. So it's more of getting there, doing the race, and getting back.
Yeah, which is a shame in a way, isn't it? Do you cross borders during it?
There's, I'm still kind of trying to figure that out. Obviously, if you drive or take the train, you do. During the race itself,
Yeah.
You don't.
Okay.
It's entirely in Italy. You're quite close to Switzerland. But yeah, even flying there from Bristol, at least, there's no direct flight, and so you kind of have a choice of a layover in Amsterdam or landing in Geneva.
Okay.
And you have to cross a border at some point and then deal with multiple countries' COVID restrictions.
Right. Yes, it's a minefield now, isn't it? Oh dear. I watched the movie that the Run Show produced of your Grand Round. One of the things that really struck me was watching you get on that bike in Keswick, having done 2 rounds already, and you're then facing a 230-mile bike ride before running the last round. What was going through your mind at that point?
Well, at that point, I needed to just get going. I gotten a nice little nap there, and so for I don't know, 2 or 3 hours, and so was a bit groggy getting started. But that's a stretch where I knew that I could kind of take it easy. I looked at the bike sections as active recovery, essentially, and so I knew that I needed to stay awake, stay alert, and stay focused. And if I could do that and just take it a mile at a time, then I would get there. And the Ramsey round was still going to be the big remaining challenge.
I mean, just the whole thing is mind-boggling to me. It's amazing. You said what motivates you is finding that Goldilocks zone between knowing you can't do something and not knowing but thinking it might be possible. I think you seem to have quite an analytical mindset to calculate those sort of boundaries. Is that something that interests you? Are you quite analytical, running the numbers, or do you ever run on just a gut feeling?
I mean, you have to have a bit of that at times, especially in race situations where you have competitors that you're making strategic decisions and that sort of things. There are a lot of mental games that go in there, and a lot of things you can't analyze ahead of time. But yeah, I'm a data scientist by day, and so that's how I spend most of my life, is looking at numbers and analyzing probable outcomes and potential unexpected outcomes, and seeing what the best strategy is to kind of maximize your risk versus reward.
Random question here, but something that popped out on your bio. What video game character did you dress up as for your Guinness record?
That was Link from the Zelda series.
Okay.
And so it was, I got a lot of people cheering at me, thinking I was an elf. This was back when Lord of the Rings movies had come out recently, and so I got a lot of Go Legolas and various other things. Just a few people got it right, but it was a fun run, and interesting with it was a headwind year in Boston. It's a point-to-point course, so you can either get a headwind or a tailwind.
Right.
And the tunic I was wearing was, essentially a parachute.
Oh, no. So, well, an even better record then. Talking records, you saw John Stocker's amazing achievement at the Suffolk Backyard Ultra. Is that an event that appeals to you?
Yeah, I'd love to do that sometime, and of course with the main event, Big's Backyard, being in my home state in Tennessee, I'd love to get there to that sometime. But it's like so many other things, there's only so much time, and right now a lot of logistics around travel and other things that have to be taken into consideration. But eventually, I'm sure that I'll be there. And fortunately, that's one of those events that I think that you can be successful at quite late in your career, as speed isn't necessarily a big factor.
Well, your analytics will probably really come to the fore for that as well, won't they? Your no Barkley. Again, I was struck by how you went off and did that by yourself. Did you enjoy that as much as the race? Did you get a greater sense of achievement from doing it by yourself?
No, I mean, it was definitely much different than the race. So it was, I did do, there's what's called a Barkley Challenge loop, which runs the trails on the outer perimeter of the park. And it's about 20 miles. I think there's about 7,000 feet of elevation gain on it. But it's nothing like the actual Barkley. You're on trail the entire time. The terrain still isn't as steep, and you're not dealing with the briars and the navigation and the lack of sleep and all of that. So it was a fun challenge. I definitely enjoyed it, but I would have much rather had the actual race.
The real one. Okay, understood. I didn't realize it was so different. Well, that is it. I won't take up any more of your time. I'm very grateful that you took your time to talk to me. Thank you very much, John. Yeah,
thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, all the best for the Tour de Jean if you manage to go over there and if it goes ahead.
Yeah, thanks very much. I should look at getting my travel arranged for that.
Yeah, that might be a good idea. It's not so far away now, is it? Is it middle of September?
Yeah, just a few weeks away.
Yeah, because I was talking to Jasmine the other day because she's doing the Monte Rosa, and they've had to change the route to keep it within Switzerland, so they're not crossing borders. But again, for her, it's getting over there, and as you say, family can't make a trip of it. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking her husband is doing one of the tour events. I can't remember if Tour de Géant or Tour de Glaciers or one of the. There's 5 or 6 races as part of the same event.
Oh, are they the same weekend?
No, I think it's the following week. So there's Monte Rosa.
They might be swapping. They might be flying past each other to go into
the tour events. Yeah, we'll see. Well, I think their plan was to support each other, but yeah, I don't know if that'll work or not. Mm-hmm.
Hopefully maybe next year, things will get back to normal.
Yeah, I hope so.
Thank you, John. Take care.
All right. Thanks. You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.